Everyone that's here that this session is being recorded. We always start on time, so it's my pleasure. My name is Debjani Biswas. It's my pleasure to hand it over to the President of IIT North Texas Board of Directors, Sanjiv Kumar.
Thanks a lot, Debjani. Good morning, everybody. My name is Sanjiv Kumar, and thanks a lot for blocking your time on this beautiful fall day. Before we do, go with our speakers and talk about a topic which is very close to my heart, I'll take a couple of minutes to talk about our organization, which is the IIT Alumni of North Texas. Our mission at IIT-NT is very simple, to bring alums and non-alums together and to facilitate what we call is a three-word: connect, explore, and enrich. The Alumni Association in North Texas has been fairly active, and we've been having these speaker series that we're going to have today. We have happy hours, typically on a last Thursday or a Friday of a month. We have our annual picnics, although we didn't have it this year. We have our annual conference and many more events like this. One of our most, what I call is the most signature event for us is our IIT EAN event, which is an IIT entrepreneurial event there, which actually applies the talent and experience of IT alums and non-alums. And we act as mentor and promote entrepreneurial activity in North Texas. This has helped us to build new connections in the community. Now, I would take this opportunity to request all alums and non-alums to join the IIT-NT community and help us bringing more people together and participate as actively as you can. We are looking forward to more feedback from all of you to ensure that this association works more energetically and the way we would like our mission and vision to be fulfilled. I'm particularly looking for, young alums, and I always talk about women alums here.
What?
Yes.
We couldn't hear. Sorry, we are hard of hearing, some of us.
Yeah.
Sorry, say again.
Yes. Women alums, yeah.
Write a list.
Last week,
Yes. We're looking for more of that.
Write a list.
If you don't mind, I will just request everybody other than Sanjiv or whoever's making a comment to mute it, because there's a little bit of disturbance in the background. Thank you.
Now, I won't take too much of your time. I know, as I said, this topic is very critical. I'm going to hand it back to Debjani. Debjani, she is our events chair. And I don't want to talk too much about Debjani. She's just phenomenal. She's an author. She's everything. I'm a multi-talented person, if I can call. So over to you, Debjani, and I look forward to this wonderful session. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you so much. I didn't expect a glowing intro myself. So thank you very much, Sanjiv. First of all, welcome. It's so nice that so many people are here, and really excited because the topic is incredibly powerful and valuable. Once again, I would request the host, Raj, if you could do something and mute everybody other than whoever is the speaker, that would be awesome. And if not, I would request if people would mute if you're not speaking, that would be awesome, because we are recording this for information purpose. So what I'd like to do is, first, I would like to talk about our speakers we have two really remarkable speakers, and Samarth itself is a remarkable organization that has helped me personally when my mother was sick. And so, this is just extremely valuable. So I'm going to go ahead and do the introduction of both the speakers. And then Sanjiv is going to play a brief video just for a few minutes, so you get a sense of what Samarth is about. And then the speakers will start, Ashish and Sanjay, Ashish Gupta and Sanjay Ahuja. So if you start off with talking about Ashish Gupta. So Ashish Gupta, he is an IITian, by the way. He has a BTech from IIT Kanpur, and he has an MBA from IIM Kolkata. And he has had this global corporate career, highly successful person, McKinsey, Halliburton, Citicorp, been a media entrepreneur, higher education evangelist. I love that word. And he has set up and transformed universities in India. So he has this really very high gravitas, high credibility background. In addition to that, he seems to have a very strong sense of social responsibility. He's been passionate about things like enhancing the quality of life for independent senior citizens. So in 2016, Ashish co-founded Samarth, and Samarth means capable in Hindi. And Samarth is a professional venture in the elder care space. And its mission is to help the elderly enjoy a quality, independent life in Indian cities. And in recognition of his work, Ashish was invited by Cornell to join the Cornell Institute for Healthy Futures as an industry scholar in 2018. That is a huge honor. I mean, Ashish really has a very long bio. This is all I'll say, and you'll learn a little bit more of it as we go along. So I'm just giving you a very brief, like snippets of a very varied, very illustrious career. Then with him, he has the co-founder, who's Sanjay Ahuja, who again has, this long bio, and I'm just taking bits and pieces from it. Sanjay is also a BTech. He's from the Delhi College of Engineering. He has done his MBA from JBIMS in Mumbai, and he has had a global corporate career. And I noticed that Halliburton is common between both of you. I don't know if you'll talk to us about whether it overlapped or not. IBM, he is an innovator and an entrepreneur, and he has been inventing award-winning consumer products within the US. Now, his passion is conservation. So he has founded AquaSmart, and AquaSmart is this water conservation. It's an education program, and this is so critical. It focuses on planting the seed for young children. And so, we're going both generations. They're focusing on helping the elderly. They're also focusing on, making the younger generation help us, with this challenge in terms of climate. So diverse engagements, different activities. So in 2016, Sanjay co-founded Samarth with Ashish. And really, I think basically before we get started, Sanjiv, if you would, we'll go ahead and do the video, but I just want to say how much we welcome you, how important your topic is, and that's the reason we're recording it. So Sanjiv, if you would, play the video.
मामा फोन उठाओ। मम्मा, चश्मा कहाँ गया? गुप्ता अंकल कभी भी टाइम पे फोन नहीं उठाते हैं। लेट मी कॉल समर्थ ओनली। चश्मा कहाँ गया? कौन है? हेलो मम्मा।
हेलो रिया, मैं अपर्णा बोल रही हूँ समर्थ से। आंटी बिल्कुल ठीक है, तुम चिंता मत करो।
थैंक गॉड।
मैंने प्लम्बर को बुला लिया है फॉर द किचन, डोंट बी वरीड।
थैंक यू अपर्णा।
आज जाने की जिद ना करो, हाय लुट जाएंगे,
हाय मर जाएंगे,
हम तो लुट जाएंगे,
ऐसी बातें किया
ना करो, आज जाने
कि जिद ना करो।
Samarth provides trustworthy, friendly, and caring support for the elderly. Gift a Samarth Care plan to your loved ones.
Thank you so much, Sanjiv. We're going to stop the thank you so much, and we will now hand it over to our speakers from Samarth, the co-founders, Ashish Gupta and Sanjay Ahuja. Take it away. And if any of you want to see the speaker, you can go ahead to your view on the top right. and either pin that person, or you can click on view speaker versus gallery, and then you would see them a little bit larger on your screen. Ashish, Sanjay.
Thank you. Thanks very much, Devjani. Thanks for your kind words. I think what we are trying to do is actually a small thing, so it's not as big as what you. I think you've been very generous with your comments, and also thanks a lot for giving us the opportunity in this forum. It's really a pleasure for us to be speaking to fellow alums and others who've taken the time to join us today. Here is what we plan to do. We'll probably take the next 20 or 30 odd minutes to essentially share our learnings about, caring for aging parents. We've done that for our own parents. We now have done that for hundreds of parents otherwise. And then maybe just respond to questions and discuss aspects that you think are important or maybe on top of your mind. And, keep it interactive, type your questions in the chat. We'll try to address as we go or come back to them afterwards. A quick, you saw the video, which in some ways tries to capture the spirit of, what we are trying to do. And I'll expand on that a little bit as we go through the thing. I'm just going to put out share. Sorry. Yeah, is my screen visible? So yes. A quick introduction to what we do. We work with the elderly and their families with a simple mission. We say to bring peace of mind and happiness to seniors and their family and children who care for them. In Hindi, we say Sukh and Chain. So really, those are the two things we focus on. And this thought has been the motivation to start Samarth and do the various things that we do within this. For four of us who co-founded it, Sanjay and I, who are there here with me, Gaurav Agarwal, who's, also an engineer from Manipal and an MBA from FMS, and then a banker with Citi and Stanchart for about 20 years. And our third co-founder is Anuradha Das Mathur, who's an economist from Cambridge. And along with her, I co-founded the media firm that Devjani spoke about, and later a leadership school for women before Samarth. And for all four of us, it was our personal experience of caring for our own parents, which have in some ways, really shaped our approach. And I wish I was there was such a constant refrain for all of us as we pursued our life and our careers while looking for ways to support our parents. And solving for it has really, become an obsession for us and really the driving force behind what we do at Samarth. We do not think of ourselves as experts, far from it. But whatever we have learned is being as practitioners who have had the benefit of experience in assisting now hundreds of families, touching thousands of seniors in our community in India, and engaging with now several million elderly in India through our various initiatives over the years. What you see are some of the things that we are engaged with. We also work with the government quite closely to serve those elderly who we can't actually reach out through our regular care programs, etc. So we do advocacy, we do research. We've been we played a small role in getting the government to start a national helpline and elder line for senior citizens, which is largely targeted towards rural or semi-urban elderly. And have been involved in developing standards for old age homes, etc. as well. Stop this. Earlier this month, the day before Diwali, my mom had a fall in the morning. I learned about it the next day when I called my parents to wish them. And my dad said, she's all right, only some back pain. And my first thought was, I wish I was there. What if this was more serious? 7 years ago, my father had a brain stroke. He was at home My mom found him lying on the floor, collapsed. She naturally panicked. She ran out to the neighbors in the house next door. They managed to get an ambulance, take him to the hospital. My brother, who, by the way, is a doctor in Delhi, and I learned about it as they were on the way to the hospital. We never felt more helpless in those 4 hours, in that 4-hour journey to Dehradun. And the only thought in our mind was, we wish we were there. My dad has always liked driving. He's 81 now. His reflexes really slowed, since the stroke. And we keep reminding him that he should avoid driving now. It's unsafe. But about 3 years ago, he went and without telling us bought a new car. And I wished I was there to reason with him, and maybe I may have been able to dissuade him from getting a new car. Now, having got that, at least once a week he takes the car out, and every time it happens, I'm really worried and wish I was there to drive him around, or at least to be with him when he goes out on crowded, unruly roads in the city. These are just a few incidents, but between emergency, healthcare, safety concerns, bills to be paid, paperwork to be done, things to be fixed at their home, almost every week, there is something that makes you wonder and say, I wish I was there. I'm pretty sure that it sounds familiar to many of you here. And when we started Samarth 5 years ago, our idea was to create a solution and answer to this wish, which we would want for our own parents and for ourselves. Because for a variety of reasons, we cannot be there all the time. And after these years of work, we realized that they also may not want that all the time. Their sense of independence and control over their life is so important for their sense of well-being and happiness. Starting with this core thought in mind, as we were starting out, Samarth, we conducted a reasonably significant research with nearly 1,000 people, including elderly in India, children in India and overseas, to more sharply understand the problem we were trying to solve. And
I'm stopping one moment. Raj, could you please mute everyone who is not a speaker, that is not Ashish and Sanjay? You have the power as host. Thank you so much.
So our first insight came from this research. And our whole sort of journey has been a journey of learning, making mistakes, and learning from there. So this research we did to figure out, as I said, what was the problem we should try to solve. While it's easy to say we are going to be the answer to this situation of I wish I was there. What does it really mean? So we asked children, we asked our respondents, people like you and me, what they wanted. And their usual response was, if there is somebody who can take care of emergencies, arrange medical care, get chores done at home, ensure that they are safe, everything focused around their physical needs. Interestingly, the response of the elderly was very different. They did not believe they wanted this, or at least they didn't think they wanted, or they didn't tell they wanted this. Their needs were more emotional and social. And that also not very complicated. There were only 3 things. People to talk to, which intuitively we knew. We all know that there is a sense of loneliness, and they want people to talk to. Oftentimes if we make a call to our parents, then it goes, it's a long call because they are longing to have a conversation. The second need was places to go to. And that was a little bit of a, insight for us. We hadn't thought that this meant so much for them. But now, if you think back, if there's a function in the house, activity, they are the ones who get most excited because, their opportunities for that have become much limited. They would bring the clothes would come out, the saris would come out, the suits would come, and they would really want to make a big deal out of it. Right? Going out, the word bucket list has a very real meaning for them. And the way they think about travel, the way they think about going out is very different from how younger people would do. For instance, they count. They say, look, I have probably 5 times I can go out, 7 times I can go out. or take long travel. Right? So there's a very different approach to, and therefore the interest in going out and places to go to. The third one, and perhaps the most important part, was the need to continue to have a sense of purpose, to be valued, to continue to feel that they are needed. Right? And that really made us, kind of open our eyes to what is the real thing. If we have to really serve the elderly and their children well, we realize that we'll have to address both the physical and social needs. It is not just about solving problems or doing tasks, but it is also about providing that social fulfillment, providing engagement, providing opportunities to continue to meet other people, to pursue things which they have given up because they have just become more difficult than they used to be earlier. And over time, we've realized that for our parents, it goes a little bit further. It is also about, in some ways, preserving their dignity, their sense of independence, their sense of self-worth. I don't know how many of you, have this situation, but my parents, they love to visit us. They love their grandchildren, but a few weeks and they want to go back. Right? Although, we feel it's so much more convenient for them to be at our place. And, as I said, my brother is here, he's a doctor, his grandchildren are here, but they always long to go back after some time, because for them, their sense of independence and control over their environment, familiarity is so important for them, so important for their sense of well-being. So that was a big insight for us. And therefore, as you think about, taking care of your parents, wherever they are, it's not about the physical needs alone. For them, that's a much lower priority. We all know they need it, and I'm sure they also know they need it. But in the sense of, in the order of priority, it comes much later. Our second insight has been about the most important ingredient in this work, how to make it work. And we wondered that, we were, when we looked around, and particularly if we looked around for physical needs, we said, look, many of these services are now available, at least in the big cities in India. You can book a cab, you can book travel online, you can get deliveries, you can get folks to do maintenance at home. There are apps, there are all these things. So why don't they use it? And we realized for them, trust plays an overwhelming role. And the second thing is they do not want to get into, many of them do not want to get into hassles anymore. The willingness to negotiate is significantly reduced. India is a chaotic country. I mean, those of you who spend time here know that, things are far from perfect, and you can never expect repeatability or the same thing. It's still not there. But, people like us, we've learned to negotiate. So we will call an Uber. The guy will say, look, I can't come. So we'll call somebody else. And then, he will break down or drop us somewhere, in the middle, and then we'll call somebody else. We are okay with doing that. They are not. For them, often, if there is a problem, the response is to avoid rather than to fix. If something is not working, stop using it. If travel has hassle, stop traveling. As a result, what happens is that their life becomes increasingly narrow and constricted. Again, I can give you my example. My parents, so one of, one bathroom in their house, it had a leaking tap. I said, look, we've stopped using that bathroom. I said, look, that's not the response. Why don't you get it fixed? Getting somebody to come into the house, we don't know whether we can trust the guy or not. What if, he's looking at trying to figure out ways to break in, etc. So with all these things, they stop. They, as I said, they constrict their life. They start going narrow and narrow, and it begins to affect their quality of life, because things that they can do, they don't. And they would often wait for children to come and fix things, to do certain things. I don't know if you experience this, but I experience this all the time. When we go home to visit them, we know that there's a list of things which we have to get done, right? And yeah, we do it because they trust us, and it's our responsibility to do this. So we realize that for us to serve them well, they will have to, they have to trust us. We have to figure out a way that they trust us. And who do they trust? They trust their sons and daughters. So which meant for us that we too will have to think and act like a daughter or son would. Right? Now, again, that's easier said than done. What does it practically mean? So again, when we looked at it, and like engineers, you want to break down things and say, look, what are the causal things, etc. And we said there are three things again. What children do are, among many other things, is one, they take ownership for things. So children wouldn't say, look, I've got a plumber for you, and now you figure it out. They say, okay, I'll get it done. If the plumber doesn't do things well, I'm going to, get another one, or make sure that he or she, does whatever is required. You don't have to worry. I'm now taking ownership of the problem. The second thing children do is, they uncompromisingly put the parents' interest first. So they unabashedly, they are not trying to be fair to both parties and all of that. They say, look, my interest is towards my parents. I'm going to make sure that this works for them. And finally, as children, you won't sort of tell your dad, this is not in my scope. For this, you figure out, you find somebody else. If you can do that readily, you will do it. If you can't, you will figure out a way to do it. You'll say, okay, this may take some time, but don't worry, I'm going to, get it done. So that's really what set us, we set ourselves up to be. So we said, look, if we have to earn the trust and if we have to do what is needed, then we need to act and be like son or daughter. We have to take responsibility. We have to keep their interest first. And we have to be fairly wide and broad and open in our scope. And that from a business sense, it didn't make a lot of sense. People said, look, you have to define what you have to do. You have to be very clear about your, bill of services. We said, look, but this probably won't work. And that's why, we couldn't find a service that or an organization which we would trust, because there are people who are doing things A, things B, things C, leaving us to integrate it. Who's going to do the integration? Right. And over time, what has happened is, therefore, we have been largely driven by the needs and the requests that have come to us from children, from parents, and we built a broad array of services, which are, in many ways, they are kind of, nothing is unlimited, but they are virtually unlimited. So we have 65, 66 things on our menu, but if there is a 67th or a 68th, then we go ahead and do it. Our first instinct is to figure out a way of doing it rather than to say, no, this is outside our scope. What it also means is that, as a young organization, obviously we couldn't do everything ourselves. So how do we solve for that problem? And we did, again, what a child would or a son or daughter would do. I mean, you would go out in the market, you would figure out whatever is the best solution and then bring that in. And that's what we learn to do as an institution. So we curate partners, we curate services, and our lens for tests or our test for curation is very simple. Is this good? If this is good enough for our own parents, then it's good enough for our community. Also, as we started to grow our organization, as we started to recruit, train, build processes, everything we try to build around this principle of being like the son or daughter. To give you an example, we work through our, we have a few hundred care counselors who are really the backbone of how we deliver our services to families. And we said, look, our care counselors need to bring in two things. I mean, one is very high sense of empathy and passion for this work, because this has to be something more than work for people who are engaged in it, but also a very high sense of professionalism. One of the reasons why we chose not to work only with volunteers was, volunteers are often very high on passion, but it's tough to bring the same level of accountability and commitment as you can with people who you are employing. And so we choose our care counselors very differently. I mean, these are mostly people like us. These are people who have been professionals. Mostly they are women. I think by they tend to be have greater empathy and bring that blend of empathy and professionalism better than perhaps men do. but they've all, had professional careers, but now want to do something which brings them, which gives them a higher sense of meaning. And so our training also focuses on saying, look, whenever in doubt, do what you think a son or daughter would do, and build the whole model around it. Our third insight was about interactions. So when we were starting, like most, startups, and given our own interest in technology, we said, look, we must have an app. We must have an app for, the elderly. We must have an app for children so that things can be done, and we'll automate stuff and all that. And very quickly we realized that, tech cannot replace touch, particularly when you're serving elderly. And what we have learned to do now is more lead with touch and then follow through with tech. Because if you introduce tech, then you suddenly, it comes in the way of building trust. So we use quite a bit of tech, but embed it in things to make it more reliable, to bring in more efficiency, to bring in greater transparency. But for the elderly, it's always touch first. And there are many more such things we have learned along the way as we built Samarth, especially as we worked with more children and understood their needs. Sanjay, in fact, has a much more interesting perspective of being someone in the US who cared for his parents and in-laws in India, and also as a port of call for the Indian diaspora who wanted to extend support back in India to their parents. So I'm going to request Sanjay to sort of take it from here and talk more from his sort of perspective, which is quite unique. Sanjay, over to you.
Thanks, Ashish, and thanks, Devjani and team, to give us this opportunity. So Devjani mentioned somewhere, Ashish and I both have Halliburton on our resumes somewhere. So yes, I mean, we basically go a long ways. Since 1989, we've been friends, and we worked together at Halliburton for a few years, and then he went his way, I went my way, and but we've always been in touch. And when we meet and talk about this, we actually conceptualized starting something together almost 32 years back. It just came to fruition 6 years back. But we always had this desire to work together on something, solving some problem. And so I'm so glad, and we are very close friends. And so we are very, very, we are like brothers who can talk anything to each other and say anything and be not judged and so on. So when we put this together, like Ashish said, it's learning. We are not experts at this, or we're not. Today we can claim that we have some appreciation of the issue. But at the time, we were just trying to find a solution. My parents were in India. My parents-in-laws were in India. My father was a primary caregiver for my mother. My mother was sick. And my father's very well. I mean, he's 80, 81, 82 today. He's still extremely mobile, functional, everything, sharp. But the truth was that if there is a primary caregiver at home, it is a huge challenge and burden on that primary caregiver. And so a lot of times we do not appreciate this here, nor do the parents appreciate it. So even in my case, where I was part of this, I was trying to tell my mother, hey, we need an attendant in the home, we need this support, that support. And as is normal with any Desi parent, they're not going to want any of this support for a variety of reasons. So I think the key here is that we have to understand this more holistically and take actions when the time is right and not wait till that day comes. So the way I look at this is one of the biggest issues that I foresee when I talk to people here in the stateside. I get calls every day, few calls, and I talk to every one of them, try to understand what's going on there and so on, just to give them perspective of how we could help. But a lot of times I get that call when they are in dire straits, when there is a crisis, when the parents had a fall, heart attack, something big has happened, and now they are looking for a solution quickly. And at that time, it is a challenge to try to solve everything, because it's all a question of resources and how do you mobilize those resources and so on. So our request and suggestion always is, do not wait to start something like offering some care to your parents or having somebody on the ground. do it sooner than later. Don't wait for the crisis to occur. I've had situations where somebody called me in the morning, I was at work, and they left a message. 2 hours later, I called them back, and they said, I'm sorry, my father just passed away. And it is so disheartening at that moment for us that we could do nothing. We could not even provide any support because it was just way too late. And not to blame anyone, but the truth is that we all take parents' lives for granted. And we all live here. We think they are doing fine. They tell us they are doing fine. And so we talk to them. I used to talk to my mother. My mother passed away last year, unfortunately, not COVID, but she was sick. And I was talking to her every day. But my 10 minutes or 15 minutes of talk to her is not adequate. We need some people on the ground to be able to give us the perspective of what's going on there. In my mother's case specifically, her blood sugar went down drastically. My father is almost a doctor. He's been taking care, he took care of her for many, many years. So he knew everything. And the doctors that he was working with, they all knew him very well. So they would even respond to him middle of the night on text, hey, do this, do that, etc. And it was COVID situation, obviously. So she couldn't be rushed to hospital anytime you wanted. The responsiveness issues were there and so on. But I wish that, that there were more resources that we could have assigned to her, even besides what we had on the ground at the time. But the truth is that sometimes you just cannot control the situation. In my mother's case, she just passed away, like within seconds. My father was there, the caregiver was there, the attendant was there, and she just passed away. So if there is destiny, obviously we can't change that. But there are many, many instances where the help can be provided in time. And we've had instances at Samurth where we've had a counselor visiting a parent and looking at the parent saying, hey, the parent is really not doing well, something is wrong, and making an executive decision to take the parent to the hospital, and the doctor telling them that she's actually suffering with a heart attack right at that moment and saving the life. That doesn't necessarily has to be the reason why we should do this, because like Ashish said, I think the most important piece of this puzzle is it's not just the emergencies. It is, we need to think about parents like children. They need help, and they will never acknowledge it. The reality is, which Desi parent will ever allow the child to spend even, a dime on them? You go tell them, hey, I'm going to hire a service for you to come, somebody's going to come and check on you. No, I'm totally fine. I don't need any help. I can manage it. I have these relatives. I have neighbors that I trust. All of this stuff is happening. And that is the truth. That is how India has been operating and used to operate. But times have changed. People have moved on. Family sizes have shrunk. And everybody is busy in their own lives. So while they can provide support to you, they cannot provide consistent support to you. And so our goal is to have that resource available. And by resource, we don't mean just one resource. We have a whole team that is looking at the parent holistically and saying, hey, if a ball gets dropped somewhere, we have some other resources that we're going to lean on, and so on and so forth. So we try to put that perspective that the parent, when they really need help, we are able to provide them help. And that's the key thing here. There's challenges in this. It's very hard to sell this idea to the parent. As a child, you and I, we go to our parent and we are saying, hey, we want to do this. And they're going to say, no, no, no. Like I said earlier, I've had situations where I was talking to a child like me. She's 65, mother is 93, living all by herself in Chennai, 2.5, 3 years back, and telling me, Sanjay, she's a very independent woman. She lives in the house by herself. She doesn't want anybody to come, and so on and so forth. But I am totally not at peace. I'm visiting her 4 times a year, but even that is not adequate, because how much can I contribute by visiting, for a week and 4 times a year? So I need this help for my peace of mind. And that is exactly what this started with for her. And so she went back to her mother and she said, hey, this is for my peace of mind. You just allow these people to come. So mother initially was like a little resistant, but she finally said, okay, yeah, I would take it, And today, 2.5, 3 years later, she's still continuing to use the service because she has recognized the value. See, that's one thing which we have realized through our experiences is that parents, while they may tell us that they don't need help, they all know they need help. They are not going to acknowledge it. So it is our job to work with them to give them that perspective, put whatever spin we need to put. In some instances, we've had to put a spin where somebody said, hey, this is my friend's organization. It's a social enterprise. We just want your input because the parent is able and they can do everything today. We're saying, hey, we want your input, how this service is performing. And so we did a test run with them for a month or two. And now we are still continuing that for a year or 2 years or more. And so the key point is, parents are like children. We have to work with them. We have to groom them, coach them, provide them the perspective of why this is important. And this is a truth that in many cases, parents are able. They can do a lot of things. But what they cannot do is have that emotional support, companionship. And a lot of cases, let's say one spouse is totally able, the other spouse needs some help. The one spouse, if they go down, if something happens, the second spouse has no clue how to handle anything. And so all our perspective is start early, make sure that the parents are on board. If they are not on board, let's bring them to neutrality. And we've had situations where we've had negative parents and even they have turned around. So as long as they are not hostile with the situation, as long as they acknowledge that this is something that is either for the child's peace of mind or for some support to them, it works extremely well. And that's 99% of the cases. In our case, like Ashish said, we basically are providing an extension of the child to the parent. That's how I present it. And the child being the care counselor. So the care counselor is the person who's on the ground, is close to the parents, no more than 15, 20 minutes away. So if there is a need, so parent has their number, you have their number, you are in a WhatsApp group with them. There are other resources from the organization who are in a WhatsApp group with you. So if you need anything done or any action or any message, let's say parent is not, like in that video, parent is not taking phone or anything, you reach the care counselor. But you're not just reliant on that one person. You put that information in the group, and we have Gaurav's team, which is all looking at it on a daily basis and making sure that the ball doesn't get dropped. So we have counselors being managed by lead counselors, then global lead counselor. All of those people are, their only charter is that in each situation, the ball should not get dropped. Now, when I say that, it is also important to appreciate that the whole model is operating in a extremely, so our plan, for example, starts at only 7,000 rupees a month. What do we get in that 7,000 rupees a month? We are basically having that care counselor assigned to the parent who's making a couple of visits a month, every 15 days or so. They are available on call for any kind of backend support over phone. They will help organize doctor's appointments, organize any kind of logistics, grocery, medicine, whatever. But if the parent says, hey, I want to go visit a doctor and I want you to accompany me, they'll do it. They will organize all of that. And 7,000 rupees a month covers that. Any additional trip that a care counselor has to make is only like 1,500 rupees, which is only covering their travel time and travel cost. The truth of the matter is that the cost is so insignificant to provide this service that there is no reason not to do it. And from the standpoint of the quality of service that you're getting, the reason why we are able to do this at this is because this is operated as a social enterprise. And all these care counselors are people, like Ashish said, who were professionals, who were in 35 to 45 middle-aged group, mostly women who gave up their corporate careers at some point of time, decide to spend time with their families or community or do some good work. And so they're doing this out of goodness of their heart. We are compensating them, but there is no way that we could ever provide this quality of service if they were actually employed 100% of the time with us and we were just having them 100% standby for your parent. This would cost us 1 lakh rupees a month or more. So we are able to do this because the model works. The key thing to understand here is that this model is a partnership. It's a partnership with you, it's a partnership with your parent, and it's a partnership with your resources that may exist there and our resources that exist in the country. So it's a partnership together. Our whole goal together is to keep the parent safe, to keep the parent comfortable in their home, and make them happier by providing whatever support we can provide them. So in this case, if God forbid there is an emergency and the parent calls, or you come to become aware and you call the care counselor, let's say it's 2 a.m. in the night, and the care counselor is not available at that moment. We do have that WhatsApp group where you can put that information, or there's a number that's provided to you and the parent that you would call, and even at the middle of the night, we will pick that phone and then we'll start taking action, whatever needs to be done. So think of it this way. You are living in the same city as your parent, and you're trying to provide support to the parent. Whatever you're going to do on a best effort basis is what we are trying to do. That's the heart. That's where the whole premise of our organization is, and that's why we exist. So our goal is not to run this as we discuss a lot. We spend a lot of time thinking initially, hey, we could make this into a Pratham type venture or something where we could do a nonprofit and just go fundraise and run this. But we said, no, if we do that, we don't have control on the quality of service that we want to provide and the way we want to provide it. So we run this as a social enterprise. We charge you nominal money, but it allows us to provide that service the way we would like it to. If this is, it starts with the care counselor or care program, which is our backbone. But if parents need more help, there are mobility issues, they need help with the attendant at home, we can arrange all of that. We do all the logistics, project management of it. If an attendant runs away, remember, India is not as sophisticated as the United States in the context of even background checks and so on. We can't just take a social security and check everybody out. So we have developed our own process over these years where we started with one city as a pilot, and today we are in 60 plus cities. And for us to add another city is just a matter of a couple of weeks. We have got the process sorted. Gaurav understands that whole process. He has a whole team working on this. And the way we do this is we have a process of due diligence on each care counselor that we bring on board. And that care counselor is never hired just because they are looking for a job. This is, you have to have heart in the right place. You have to have the right reasons, and you are going through an onboarding program that we train them on, and so on and so forth. Like Ashish said, all of those elements have to exist. And then of course we do the Aadhaar card, PAN card, and any kind of verifications, as well as the most important piece is reference check for us. And we generally, when we bring a care counselor on board, we have some sort of a reference, direct reference, where we have some direct connection that we are working with. So all those elements we try to bring into this picture. The most important thing here is, go ahead. I'm almost done.
Sanjay, no, you absolutely continue. I did want to give you a heads up that there's several questions have come in. So whenever you've finished, I'll start asking some of those.
I don't know. I think I'm almost done. I'm just,
please.
I was going to wrap up by saying that it is, in my opinion, as a person who lives here with parents in India, unfortunately now my mother passed away, so father's here, I brought him here. And if you could do that, that is the best thing you can do for your parent. But if it's not practically possible, and if they are not comfortable living, my father's very happy and comfortable, so it works out. But if they're not, this is the best thing that you can do for an insignificant cost. And you have somebody on the ground, eyes and ears, which is your extension, who's thinking like you, who wants to help, who's in the right place, and will work as a team with you to make it happen. So that's basically, I just wanted to give my perspective, and then we are both available to answer any questions.
Thank you so much. So the way that it works is I'm going to start reading out some of the questions that were in the chat. If I could summarize, the sort of overarching question is, where all do you function? And someone has gone to the website and said they couldn't find a list of all the cities. So I was wondering if one option would be, because Gaurav Agarwal has been trying to answer the questions in chat. So I wonder if people such as Naveen and Narendra and Himansh, different people have asked, I wonder if they could send their email addresses privately to Gaurav in the chat, and then maybe get a listing. That is one. Or is there another way? Because questions have come about Telangana, about Noida, about Kolkata, about different places. Do you have a service about Ranchi? So how will people know if their city is covered? And how will you get their email addresses to make the connection? That's sort of the first general, if I summarize, round of questions, and then there are others.
So let me try and take that. And we will, I'll request Gaurav to put his email ID also in the chat. So, that becomes a way for anybody to reach us if they want to. Otherwise, they can reach to us directly. As far as our reach is concerned, we are today in about 65 cities where we have teams and we serve families. And these include all metros, these include all tier 1 cities, most tier 2 cities, and many tier 3 cities. The reason why, you know, the current list is not that material, I would say, is that because, as Sanjay said, see, for us, providing this, ensuring accessibility of this service to all places was also very important. I mean, you know, we could have very well said, look, you know, we'll just operate in metros, we just do here. But as we work through, we realize that while you know where children are going to be, the core is, you know, parents are going to be wherever they are. And so the way we work is that, you know, in any, it's not difficult for us to start a new city, and we are okay to start a new city with one, you know, with one client, one person. Most cities have started like that, right? There was somebody in, you know, Bakura, and we said, look, yeah, I mean, we'll do that in Bakura, because the whole model works in a way where we have somebody, you know, some of the work gets done locally, some of the work gets done centrally, and we have resources to do different parts of the job. So in places where we have presence, we can probably start it faster, and we could get started in a week. But places where, you know, which are new cities, it'll take us probably 2 to 3 weeks to get started.
Thank you, Ashish. There's a follow-up to that question in the text, which is, if we need care in a city which is not in your list, can that be added? And I think you already said that you would make the effort, but it might take a little bit more time. There was another question around the recordings. How can the recordings be reached to people who are not here? I took the liberty, rather than us being a conduit, when the recording is done, we will send Samarth a link, because we are trying to send all the traffic to you so that you can, you know, disposition it. So that is one suggestion. And then the other thing they said is, like, how does the contracting work? You know, you had mentioned 7,000 rupees a month is how it starts, but how does it work? Is there a contract? Is there a certain period? What's the process for signing up? How do we sign up is the other question.
So let me answer that. And I think I wanted to say that, but I wrapped it up quickly. Since this is a collaboration, and we want the parent to be very comfortable, and we don't want to force anything on them at all, because if you force anything, the likelihood of it succeeding is limited. So we want to work with them, and so we don't have any contracts. There's no long-term contracts. We do bill either quarterly or annually in advance. You can pay using an Indian bank account, directly transfer, or if you really want to pay out of states, we can send you a PayPal invoice. There will be some PayPal fees, but other than that, you can pay it whichever way. Any money that we received from you is essentially escrow. And so any service that we have provided, if at some point of time, after months, 2 months, 3 months, your parent says, hey, we don't want this service, it's not adding any value, or you feel that it's not adding any value, you can terminate it and get prorated refund. So it's normally, we've seen people who really want to try, because there's no contract, you tell your parents, hey, let's just try for 2-3 months. I would highly recommend, do not tell them that it's 2 weeks, because 2 weeks or a month is not adequate for them to build any kind of relationship or rapport with a care counselor to understand what's going on. But a couple of 3 months, in 3 months, they get a pretty decent idea. And usually we've seen that once they've gone through that initial 3-month period, then it's very likely that they are going to continue and be happy with it, because they've now built some rapport, they've started. I'm telling you, this video that Ashish shared, this may sound too simplistic situation, but the truth is that those situations occur on a daily basis. And having somebody who you can call and say, hey, of course you can call an uncle, auntie, neighbor's son or somebody, but having that one contact who's your focal point for any situation is such a relief, and you are not obligated to anybody from that. I have had situations where I had a person call me. She was in Rhode Island, and her mother was in Kolkata. She wanted her mother to be taken to CMC Vellore for checkup for a week. And she didn't even have an agreement with us at the time, but she called me out of need. And we said, okay, we'll go ahead and take care of this. We'll arrange for a care counselor to accompany your mother, go to CMC Vellore, stay with her in the hospital, get your testing done, and so on and so forth, report to you, and so on. And that was an option that we were able to mobilize for her in a short period of time. Her only other option was either she had to fly or she had to ask someone else. And in this situation, the situation improved and she didn't have to eventually take off the service. But that is the extent we go to. Our whole model here is that there is no cookie cutter approach. It's all custom. It's all based on what the parent needs and the child's needs here are, and how do we service that need. So there's no long-term contract or commitment that you're making.
Thank you, Sanjay. So there are multiple questions. I'm going to read out two of them, and I will stay on after the 6 minutes is when our time ends, but I will stay on if there are other people able to. But I'd like to read out at least two of the questions. I've also requested Gaurav to at least put his email ID in the website so people can follow up if we can't cover it in the next 5 minutes. So it's a specific question from Harpreet. What is the average age of the service providers? There are multiple questions in this. You mentioned they are ex-professionals. Are they retired? Is the monthly charge for the services of one specific service provider to one parent? So that is one set of questions from Harpreet. I'm also, and I will save the chat and send that to you as well. There's another question which asks, do you provide service for people with Alzheimer's? That is the other one. And then there's another one which says, can you share some scenarios? Obviously, this money cannot cover unlimited visits. So the first one was Harpreet, and Harpreet was asking, average age, service providers, ex-professionals, retired, is the monthly charge for the services of one specific service provider to one parent.
Right. So typically our care counselors are between 35 to 45 years of age. And so they bring in a certain, maturity, experience, and all of them have looked after elderly in their own family. I mean, that's an important thing that we look for. So they are not retired in the sense that they are not, in age, but they've chosen to doing something. The second question about what it covers and the visits and the number of visits, etc. So we have different plans, and depending on the requirement, we would modify the plan or tailor the plan accordingly. In about, I would say, 70% of the cases, our base plan works, which involves 2 visits by the care counselor in a month. So once in 2 weeks, roughly. I mean, they could be moved here or there. Usually or oftentimes we have a discussion with the children and they feel, oh, this is too little, or, maybe we'll need once every week, or maybe we'll need once every few days. Our experience is that in majority of the cases, this is adequate. In addition to this, we are also in touch with them. So there are at least 2 touch points every week between the visit and a check-in on phone or on a video call. There are at least 2 check-ins that happens in a week, and that works in most cases. But if there are additional visits, then there is an additional charge to it. An additional visit, as Sanjay said, would cost about 1,500 rupees to cover for the travel, and this includes their travel and time. So we don't charge extra for travel. In some cases,
I think I want to clarify one thing that because somebody had this question so let's say hypothetically, if there is a visit that is needed for taking the parent to the hospital, and it involves more than 2 hours. So normally when we call a visit 1,500 rupees or the 2 visits, they entail up to about 2 hours worth of counselor's time, which we think is adequate to do the transactional jobs or provide companionship, engage with the parent, play the games with them, or chit chat with them, read newspaper, sing songs, or do some tasks or chores. But if there is a need where it requires more than 2 hours, then it's really 1,500 rupees is for a 2-hour window. But if it turns out to be larger, there'll be a conversation that we'll have, and we are very reasonable because our goal is not to run this as a profit-making business. It's a social enterprise. So we'll have that conversation with you, and Gaurav and his team will explain what type of charges we might be incurring if we provide this type of support. So we had a situation where one of the father had a heart attack, and we ourselves recommended that they needed an attendant. that needs to be staying with the father in the hospital at that point of time. And an attendant costs some money, but they were not comfortable with that. So obviously we provided the care counselor, and they visited the hospital and did whatever we could do. But if whatever conversation we will have with you, we are a team. So we are gonna go through it, and like whatever is the cost basis, you will know, but it's not significant. It's really.
Sanjay, what I'm going to suggest, because we are very particular that we make sure officially to end in time and then we stay on as needed. So I'll ask one last, I want to say as we close, there are multiple questions. So if I can summarize people that we cannot answer, say 7 questions. Gaurav has been nice enough to send his email ID, so I'm suggesting him. So if we don't cover it and you have to drop off, it's gaurav.agarwal@samarthlife.org. You can see it in the chat. And then I will stay on for as long as is needed, and we will continue multiple questions, such as, for example, can we as children interview or sort of vet the care provider before introducing to our parents? There are questions around specific things such as Alzheimer's. So what I'd like to do is officially for us to close the session, because we always start and end on time, and then know that if you have a specific need, then please stay on, and we will stay on for at least 20 to 30 more minutes as needed. So with that, I just want to say thank you so much. I personally learned a lot. It was so useful when I filled out the form with all the information about my mother. People were there in emergencies, provided so much help when she needed oxygen. So this is very worthwhile. I wanted to say thank you, as comments have come, to both Ashish, to Sanjay, to Gaurav, to Geeta, to Nick, to all these people of Samarth for this amazing thing you do. And officially we're ending this session. However, I will stay on with whoever from Samarth will stay on to handle multiple other questions. And gaurav.agarwal@samarthlife.org. So any email, please email him. I'm just giving one. And then officially we have ended, but I will stay on as long as we have questions. We can keep fielding the questions. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thanks very much.
So the next question, if the rest of you are willing to stay on, there was a question about vetting. So if I, as a child, can I vet the service provider before I actually have them introduced to my parent?
Right. So the short answer is yes. We understand that this is this is as much about matching, the care counselor to the parent and the family as it is about providing the services later on. So the way it works is that, we start with, first of all, making sure that we can help you. So before we start, we do have we do seek certain information to make sure that we'll be able to work effectively and provide what you are looking for. Basis that, and each case we've seen is unique. I mean, there are differences in what everyone is looking for. So we try and match care counselors who are particularly suited to that, both in terms of their experience and also in terms of their location. So for example, in Bombay, it matters a lot where the care counselor is, and typically we try and make sure that they can reach and they are not more than half an hour away. And then we have there's a call. We introduce the care counselor to the children first. You may have questions, you may want to talk to them, understand, and sometimes explain also what your expectations are. And once you are comfortable with the idea, and once you are comfortable with the care counselor, then we go ahead and introduce them to the parents.
Thank you, Ashish. So I think to summarize, people asking them multiple questions in the thread, as well as private messages people are sending. What's my next step? I want to help my mother. So do you want me to email Gaurav? Do you want me to go onto the website? Is there a particular link? Do you want me to set up a direct discussion with someone? What's my next step? I want to do this. I have a parent in Telangana, in Kolkata, in Noida, and multiple places. What's my next step? Tell me what to do, is to summarize.
So the easiest way to do is, and for you also to get to know a little bit more in, granularly what we do, is to take a look at our website. It's a very simple one-page website, www.samarth.care. So if you go to the website, you will see what the plans are, what do they cover. we talked about being like the son or daughter, but obviously that needs more explanation. And there we've tried to bring to life what are some of the things that, use cases and the kind of things we would do, etc. And you can send us your details about, the way we should contact you. So your number, your email ID, the city in which you are looking for support, and any other, critical information you may want to share with us. And we'll make sure that, within 24 hours, we'll get back to you and, then have a more personal conversation about your specific requirement and how we may be able to help you.
Thank you very much. And by the way, in between, a lot of very positive comments coming in. Awesome job. What is more power to you. What a wonderful service you provide. Very good comments. So now I'm going to open it up. If anyone wants to unmute and ask direct questions themselves, such as they've asked, Gaurav has been very smartly typing away, like, do you provide an attendant at night? He's saying yes. How do we connect with you? Is that he's saying no contract, you can, so he's trying to answer a lot of things, lots of really positive things. They've asked, can we share the WhatsApp, the recording on WhatsApp with larger groups? Is that okay with all of you for us to be sharing it with WhatsApp groups, larger groups, this recording?
Sure, absolutely, no problem.
Okay, absolutely.
Okay. So anybody who wants, please unmute at this time. If the question has not been answered yet, please go ahead and click on unmute. You have the permission to unmute and ask your question directly of Ashish or Sanjay or Gaurav, actually, or Geeta, whoever from Samarth that I recognize is on the line.
Debjani, this is Dilip. I have one
Dilip.
question.
Mm-hmm.
How did this for Ashish and Sanjay? How did you maintain the continuity during the pandemic, and going forward, if there are similar further waves of the COVID, etc.? What measures are you taking, because elderly are particularly vulnerable to the infection, etc.?
Right. So it was a tough time for everyone, and for us as well, and particularly for us, given that we were dealing with people who were more prone and who were more sort of at risk. I think, in hindsight, I can only say that, one, we were perhaps better prepared. And so even as the thing was beginning to take off, we first made sure that people under our care were all, their essential needs, medicines, provisions, food, etc., was well stocked. So that we kind of avoided to a large extent. During the lockdown, of course, there was a challenge, but that's where, I think our having the quality of our care counselors helped, because, the other thing which I didn't mention was, by having the type of care counselors we have in every city, these are also resourceful people, because there are people like us. And their ability to get things done, and often, many of them and their families went out of the way to go out to deliver things, to ensure that, if there were requirements, they were met. If hospital beds were required, they were there. Oxygen was required, we tried and provided. So I think some part of it was really firefighting. I mean, we couldn't anticipate everything. But we are in some ways, our DNA is designed to anticipate as much as possible and make sure that we prepare. So we ourselves, we had a store or a bank of oxygen and concentrators, etc., that we could provide at a short notice to people under our care. So yeah.
So I think I would also add, this was really a very trying period, that month of May. Early June, I was here receiving calls left, right, and center, and Gaurav and Ashish and the team were working day, night, 24/7, trying to provide as much assistance as we could. And this is the classic example where obviously we could not do enough. I mean, we tried every which way, but that was a time in Delhi when, you could be a prime minister and you couldn't get a bed. That was the condition in Delhi hospitals. But we did respond to each one of those. However, the learning that came to our mind, and we did some research and study on this, that all those parents who were under our care as a care program from a longer term, their responsiveness to COVID and the support that they were able to get from us, as well as their overall health, came out much better than those who we were knee-jerking trying to help at the last minute. So I think overall, like Ashish said, just being there, being aware, working with them ahead of time, preparing, all of those elements play a big role. And Gaurav will testify for this, that even during COVID, we did stop the in-person visits. So we were not visiting them in person, obviously, for their own safety, but we were providing all support, logistic support through phone and video calls and so on. And where need be, we were able to work a variety of things. Like Ashish said, we have been working with the government of India. We ran a helpline. We created a couple of centers where we were setting up oxygen concentrators for people to go to. And so there's different things that we can bring to the table. But like, we are a small enterprise with one goal: to keep the parents safe and happy and comfortable at their home. And we just need your collaboration and partnership. Every child needs to be part of this puzzle to solve it, you know.